Fans of Beyond the Gates of Antares and Resin science fiction wargaming models, thank you very much for joining me for a model, build and tactics review of the Algoryn AI Liberator X06 Plasma Destroyer tank. So this is the first model review I've done of a model from the Beyond the Gates of Antares range by Warlord Games, so this is something of a first for me. I picked up the Liberator model at Salute 2017 and I've been kind of like nibbling away working on it on and off for a bit now. Anyway, I've completed the model, so what we're going to do in this review is I'm going to show you the model, I'm going to talk you through the build, and then we're going to review the tactics as well. One of the reasons this has taken me a while to complete is I've done a full weapons fit that's magnetised on this vehicle. So as well as showing you the model, I'm going to then change all the weapons through to show you the different options that you can get for this vehicle. And it's exciting to look at something new and unusual to what I normally do. So just as a bit of a background, I've played a bit of Beyond the Gates of Antares. I've got an Algoryn force that I've put a little bit together of. I've played a bit as Gar. I've got a friend who has a Concord force, so we've done a little bit. We haven't done a great deal yet. So when I come to do the tactics bit of this review, it might be a little bit noobish, so please do excuse any errors on my assessment of this unit. And feel free to give some commentary around how you might use this vehicle in the Antares game if you're more familiar with its use. So that's the premise of the video. So let's start off by actually having a look at the model. So here we go. This is a fascinating looking tank. The kit is a part metal and part resin miniature, and it comes in 5 resin components and 5 metal components. We can see 4 of the metal components at the moment, and I'll show you the 5th soon. Let's have a look around this. So this is, I suppose, what you might call the equivalent of a medium or main battle tank in the game. It has its main armament is turret mounted, as we can see here, and the turret rotates all the way around. This turret is magnetised, so it allows me to take it off for storage, etc. and transport. You could probably go away with sticking it on if you wanted, but it's all personal preference. So let's have a look at some of the detail on it. So it's got these twin viewports that always kind of put me in mind a bit of a Second World War armoured personnel carrier of some sort, so maybe a US half-track or perhaps a German Hanomag infantry transporter. At the front, it's got this sort of like this prow, and it has one of its 2 weapons mounted here. So in this instance, this is what's called a plasma light support. And at the moment, the main weapon mounted in the turret is also a plasma light support. There are also a pair of ancillary turret systems, so you could imagine these are maybe defensive weapons or perhaps targeting systems as well. So yeah, let's just have a look around it. It's got, I mean, this is supposed to be an anti-gravity or a hover vehicle as far as I can tell. So it's got all these, in effect, thruster clusters covering the surface of the tank, which gives it a suitably, I suppose, sci-fi and also kind of like a sort of plausible feel as well, because if you've ever, I mean, I know a little bit about spacecraft, and when you see all the thrusters that are needed on a spacecraft and the various clusters of these to maneuver it, or anything that floats, you know, it sort of gives it a plausible feel, all these sort of directional control jets. So I like that. You've got these kind of hexagonal come triangular details, this meshing, almost like this meshing in these open sections. We have bas relief Algoryn Protectorate symbol on the front hull. Perhaps, well, don't know if it's quite a glacis plate, but there it is. It's a nice looking model, and in a world which is saturated with science fiction models, it's always difficult to do something new and original. And I think the artists and sculptors who have approached the Algoryn force have been successful in creating an original and new look for this line of vehicles. So let's flip it over. So on the underside, the detailing is much less noticeable than on the top, and there's sort of cabling detail here, and there's continuation of some of the panel lines, as you can see. I mean, you've got kind of like these details, and this hatch at the rear is detailed, but in terms of these main inside surfaces of these wings, those essentially not detailed. I suspect that kind of like a bit of a model complexity decision being made there. Given that this is supposed to sit on a base and always face up, I think they just decided not to do that detail. I don't think that's an issue really. If you were a very dedicated modeler and wanted one of these flying or mounted up really high, then it's not a big issue. We've got a mounting point for the base there, drops in there like that, and then it just sits like so. It seems to balance quite well. I heated this contact point up with a hairdryer actually, using a card template to mask off the rest of the model, so I didn't soften that. And then once it was hot and soft, I just positioned it to get a final mount, which is that there. You may or may not need to do that. A very smart looking model, and it's good to see this the first of the larger Algoryn vehicles, and it's a very versatile vehicle as well. And I think anyone who's got an Algoryn force will find one of these a very handy addition to that, because it can carry just about every significant weapon in the Antares arsenal, which we'll come on to in a moment. Let's just talk about the build. So the build on this model was pretty straightforward. I did a build and chat video of this model separately, which I will leave a link to in the description. It's safe to say it was an easy build, everything fit together very well. It's only 5 parts, 5 resin parts, so it was dead easy. Did have to do some filling the upper surface of the prow and the nose, shall we say, where it joined to get a smooth finish. Filed, smoothed, polished this down, so it feels like there's a pretty smooth finish there. Once it's painted, then I'll be able to tell if I need to do any more sanding work. So yeah, be aware that you might need to do that to get a smooth finish, because you have got the join that comes around here. Doing a flat surface join like that is quite difficult on a resin modelling. You don't often see it. I mean, I've not often seen it, and it's because they've gone for this complex prow shape. Quite adventurous and interesting shape, as you can see. You haven't got a detail feature on the model to hide the seam, so can't hide the seam with the mounting points as you got here. So just something to be aware of with the modelling. That was fine. There wasn't that much cleanup required on this, on the resin parts on this. That was pretty straightforward. The metal components were well cast. These are a lead-free pewter alloy, so they are hard. So even though you've only got a thin mould seam, obviously this, you've got to clean up that hard metal material. But that tends to be the way these things are these days, because not many miniature companies still use the softer and easier to work with, but lead-containing alloys. And then the magnetisation, I put a magnet in the turret, and then I've also magnetised the forward hull gun and the turret gun as well. So for the turret gun, so these are all done with 4x3 N35 grade neodymium magnets. I mounted one magnet in there, then drilled that out and mounted magnets into these weapons as well. With the prow gun, I mounted the magnet there, so it's kind of like at 45 degrees, shall I say, and then mounted the corresponding magnet there. The reason I did it at an angle was I didn't want to go straight up, because I could have penetrated this upper hull, and likewise I didn't want to go straight in, because you don't get a strong hold if you've got a magnet doing a horizontal. So I kind of did a compromise between the two, which I think has worked out just about okay. So there you go. So I talked about the weapons, so let's go through the weapons fits. So the kit comes with a variety of plasma weapons. You get the plasma light support in the nose weapon mount, and then for the turret you get another plasma light support, and then you get an alternate weapon, which is a plasma cannon, and that's this bad boy here, and then that drops in there. And then if you can see, you can probably see the box in the background. The main box art shows the plasma cannon mounted in the turret. And what this basically gives you the option with this tank is to configure it for either a rather potent anti-armor, an anti-building vehicle. I mean, the plasma cannon is a very powerful weapon in Antares. Or if you choose to equip it like so, with 2 plasma light supports, you've got a very effective all-rounder tank, which has got a mixture of firepower that's useful against light and possibly even medium vehicles with a bit of luck, and very effective with infantry with the plasma light supports. So that's the first weapon option. Now, the alternate weapon options correspond to 2 different vehicles in the army lists, and when I talk about the rules, I'll go through those and I'll bring the other weapons in. In terms of just one other thing, in terms of the base, so it comes with this clear plastic base. You get 2 flight stands. This is the taller of the 2. The shorter one's probably about a third shorter, so you have the option of mounting it high like I did, or going a bit lower. They both look good, they both work. Seems pretty stable, so I'm happy with that. But yeah, I think overall, pretty straightforward build. If you're not bothered about magnetisation, then it's absolute doddle to put together. This took me a bit longer to do because I have a lot of stuff on, but likewise doing the magnets did slow it down a bit. Right, so let's do a quick size comparison. I haven't got a lot to compare size-wise from the Antares range because I haven't built much. I will bring in a Warhammer 40,000 model to give you a bit of an idea what this looks like size-wise. Firstly, let's compare against an Algoryn Infantry model. Beyond the Gates of Antares is a true 28mm scale game. And this is an Algoryn AI Infantry warrior, and this is a squad leader armed with a mag pistol and an X sling. I do like these. They've got this excellent angular armour, which I'm very fond of. I do like the design. These metal miniatures are very nicely cast as well. They are a real pleasure to put together. So size-wise, actually it's not an enormous vehicle. It's not a huge vehicle at all. You imagine inside it's probably quite a snug fit for the crew. Because unlike some other vehicles in the Antares universe, Algoryn vehicles retain their crew to give them functionality and allow them to operate against opponents that have attacks that can disrupt the AI systems that all of the powers use. It's quite a big imposing model next to infantry. That's the only Antares size comparison I've got to give you. I'll do you a quick one against a Forge World Walker. Here we've got what's becoming one of my channel mascots, the Contemptor Achilles Dreadnought, painted by Broken Minis. And I just put that alongside the Liberator to give you a feel for the size of the vehicle. So this is a good sized vehicle, it's quite large. I mean, it's probably, comparing to, if you're familiar with Forge World, it's about the same size as the Pallas Gravatac for the Adeptus Custodes. Interesting comparison on the price there. This costs £35 base. The Pallas Gravatac, which is the same size model with a similar number of resin components, obviously that doesn't have any metal components, that costs £60. The Forge World model does have more detail, and it is detailed 360 degrees, so you've got full underside detail. However, it's nearly double the price of the Liberator, so interesting to consider that. Let's move on and talk about rules and tactics. Now, I hope I get this right, but I'm going to try my best. Let's just go through the basic stats. In terms of my rules reference, I'm using the Beyond the Gates of Antares core rulebook, and then for points values, I'm going to use the online published Algoryn AI Army List. So I'll leave a link for that to the web store page. You have to have an account to log in to download it, but it is a free download. So the Algoryn Liberator Combat Skimmer, it's a vehicle and it has the following characteristics. Its agility is 5, its accuracy is 6, its strength is 1, its resistance is 13, its initiative is 8, and its command is 8. Its special rules are Mod 2, which is multiple order dice 2, and it is large. So those are the standard rules. In terms of comparisons in other forces, this compares very closely to the Concorde and Freeborn C3M4 combat drone, which has got the same profile and a similar weapons loadout. That has a plasma cannon and a plasma light support, or 2 plasma light support, so it's the same weapon mix. Exactly the same weapon loadout. The advantage, I suppose, for this guy is there are more weapon loadouts available separately. The Concorde C3M4 combat drone only has the option of equipping with a fractal cannon or a compression cannon, replacing the turret gun, whereas this vehicle has a variety of mag weapon options as well, which increases its versatility. When you buy this, as well as the main kit, which is £35, there are 2 weapon packs as well, which one is mag weapons, one is special weapons. At the moment, you can get this as a deal for all 3 kits for £45. I think if you buy the other kits separately, I think there might be £8 per blister. I think you save £6 by getting the bundle. If we now move on to the army list, then as we go through the army list, I'm going to come to the weapon options and show you those. In the Algoryn Army List version 1, this is a strategic choice. So you have what are called tactical support, strategic and auxiliary options. This fits into the strategic choice, so it is one of the heavier units available. It's one of the heaviest units, actually. So that means it is only available in a 1,000 point or greater force. That's a combat force. So the combat force at 1,000 points allows you to take one of these. When you get up to a battle force at 1,250, you can have two, and it gets bigger from there on in. It is a unit for medium to larger size games. So in its plasma destroyer configuration, which is here, this costs 234 points as shown here, with 2 plasma light supports. You then have the option of replacing the turret mounted plasma light support with a plasma cannon, and that costs 5 additional points. So that will take it up to 239 points. You then have a number of drone options as well. These drone options are the same for all variants of the Liberator, so I'll just cover them once. You can take 2 spotter drones at 10 points each. You can take 2 batter drones at 20 points each, and you can take 2 shield drones at 10 points each. And then you finally have the option of giving the Liberator the self-repair rule for 10 points. So you get quite a lot of choice there with this vehicle. And certainly on the drone front, the addition of batter drones and shield drones substantially increase its defensive capabilities. So if you're unfamiliar with the Gates of Antares game, batter drones give a protective arc template, and any incoming fire that passes through the batter template receives a -2 accuracy penalty. You can't stack that benefit, but having 2 batter drones obviously allows you to cover a wider arc around the vehicle. Shield drones can intercept incoming fire. So, having 2 shield drones is almost like 2 extra lives, shall we say, or allows you to absorb 2 hits that might otherwise do damage to the vehicle. The spotter drones open up a couple of new tactical possibilities. There's a very direct combat benefit there. That allows you to re-roll 1 miss each time you fire, as long as your spotter drone has got LOS to the target. So that's useful, particularly if you're equipping it with the heavier weapons, such as a single shot plasma cannon, the other things like the mag cannon. That works very well with the single shot weapons because it obviously reduces the chance of missing with your only shot each turn. So that's a good combination. You then also use the overhead spotting rule, which allows it to act as a forward observer, particularly if you've got X launchers, X howitzers and other indirect weapons. And then you've got the overhead patch sighting as well, which allows you to basically tap into a network of the friendly units and do the same thing. Given this is a Mod 2 vehicle and is actually quite agile and can move quite quickly, the spotter drones give this a useful capability as a mobile spotting platform, and give it the shield drones and the batter drones, it can be very resilient as well. You can afford to get into some slightly hairier spots with it with those protective capabilities. So moving on to the alternate weapon fits now. First is the mag weapon fit. This replaces a hull mounted plasma light support with a mag light support. Mag light support weapons are less hard hitting than the plasma light support. However, it does have a longer range, same rate of fire, doesn't hit as hard. So it's not all bad news. And then the turret weapon is replaced with a single mag light support. There you go. So now we've got the similar sort of vehicle to the basic loadout, but with a mag weapon perspective. And this is obviously cheaper than the plasma option. And this standard high mag option costs 194 points, 40 points cheaper than the plasma weapon loadout. So quite significantly cheaper that. It's got the same profile. Then you have 2 alternate weapon options for the turret. So the first is to replace the single mag light support with a twin mount for the turret. There you go, twin mag light support. Now with the mag option, we've actually got an advantage on the plasma option, because although this doesn't hit as hard, you've got a lot more shots now. So you've got 3 shots per gun, so you've got 9 in total. That adds 25 points onto the cost of the vehicle. So it's still cheaper than the standard configuration with plasma. And if you're fighting lighter infantry opponents, then that isn't a bad option just for volume of shots. However, clearly it hasn't got the versatility of the plasma version. The next option on the mag weapon front turns us into a very potent anti-vehicle combatant. And that adds this weapon, which is the mag cannon, to the turret. With the mag cannon in the turret, this is a formidable anti-tank and anti-building unit, and also useful against enemy support weapons. The mag cannon's got the same range as a mag light support, but its strike value is 5 as opposed to 2, and it has a special rule of massive damage. So if you get a result on the vehicle damage table, the effect is much greater. And that's a clear advantage over the plasma cannon as well in terms of damage. So if you do get the special damage result with the mag cannon, the effects are far worse than with the plasma cannon. Do bear in mind that with the plasma cannon, it does have a higher strike value because it's strike value 6. You do have to bear in mind that the plasma cannon is vulnerable to the rule of plasma fade. So if you get a 10 on a hit roll, you lose a turn's fire while the capacitors recharge. The mag cannon isn't subjected to that. So I guess you might say the mag cannon, it can't hit quite as hard in absolute terms, but against medium targets, it's probably the more versatile choice. That's just a rough estimate, and I've not played enough Antares yet to really have a good assessment on that. So that is the high mag option, and then there's one final choice for the Liberator, and that is the X10 Special. Now this brings in the more esoteric support weapons. We take out the mag cannon, we retain the maglite support, and the standard weapon now for the turret is this peculiar device, which is a fractal cannon. So the fractal cannon is great for sustained fire against stationary targets. So in effect, it's an anti-fortification weapon. It's a great sci-fi looking gun. I love it. It's just a completely weird. Yeah, great gun. Great looking gun. Very interesting and original. So in this configuration, it's 234 points. Now this version here does come with a spotter drone as standard, which is much needed because the accuracy of the fractal cannon is very important, because basically the more consecutive hits you cause with the fractal cannon, the more damage it does, and it actually becomes frighteningly powerful. So the fractal cannon, which has got a range of 80, so it's a bit shorter range than the other weapons, its strike value is 2 plus 1 per additional turn hitting with the fractal lock rule, and that strike value goes up to a maximum of 10. So that spotter drone is very important for maintaining that locked on shot. And yeah, I mean, strike value of 10 is utterly devastating, so very potent. There is an alternate choice, and that is to replace a fractal cannon with a compression cannon, like so. The compression cannon has the same range as a fractal cannon, so it's a range of 80. Its strike value depends on range. So at effective range up to 30, it's strike value of 7, so very hard hitting up close. At long range, which is up to 40, it's strike value of 4, and then extreme range, it's only strike value of 2. So this thing is where you really need the maneuverability of this tank to get in close to get the most out of the compression cannon. And you know, the strike value of 7 at short range, this is devastating against pretty much everything, and it hits even harder than the plasma cannon. Obviously you do have a slight disadvantage in that it has a minimum value of 10. So there's two other rules as well as the variable damage with range, which is called compressor. There is a no cover rule and cycle. The no cover means that any model hit by a compression cannon get no cover bonus to their resistance roll. Yeah, so there's no hiding from this thing. Clearly very good at rooting out enemy infantry in cover and, you know, weapon teams, etc. And then finally, however, the cycle rule is a bit of a disadvantage, and this is similar to plasma fade. If you roll a 10 on your hit roll, the compression field collapses and the unit gets a down result to reflect the fact that it has to recharge capacitors. So there's compromises with the compression cannon, but still nonetheless, correctly used and supported, it's very deadly. And if you're thinking of one of these things to kit out with all of the drones to protect it, the compression cannon and fractal cannon versions seem worthy candidates. So there you go, and that completes the assessment of the rules. So in summary on the rules, I mean, this is a very versatile vehicle for the Algoryn. It can do just about any role. It's actually relatively low points for the grade of vehicle it is. Because you can have it with just a plasma light support in the front mount and the turret mount, it means you can get this vehicle for a couple of 100 points. If you started in the fancier weapon options and you're looking at sort of like more like 240 points, it does allow you to get it into a smaller force. That gives you an advantage in the numbers game. And the Algoryn already have strength in numbers versus a Concorde, so this kind of fits with that. And then you've got all these weapon options, so you really can do any role on the battlefield you want it to. The only unit it's probably really going to struggle against are heavy combat skimmers, which have resistance values of 15. But even then, if you equip it with a heavy plasma cannon or the compression cannon and some luck, you can still threaten them. So that completes my slightly rambly tactical assessment of the Algoryn Liberator tank. So I think I'll just swap it back to its, let's call it, signature weapon configuration of the Plasma Destroyer version. Yes, a very nice model, a really nice model, and it was a fun little build, and doing the magnetisation has also turned it into a very versatile tank to have in a force. And certainly at the moment, this is the centerpiece of my Algoryn force. I'm sure my mate's C3 M4 combat drone is going to give it a run for its money. I hope you've enjoyed this review of my Algoryn AI Liberator combat skimmer. It's my first review talking about tactics for Gates of Antares. If I've got anything wrong, please do share your thoughts on that in the comment section. If you've used this in game and you've got a bit of a feel for its tactical abilities based on your experience, I'll be very interested to hear that as well. But other than that, I'd just like to thank you all for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.